Welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations. I'm your host, Jonathan Youssef. Today we're tackling a topic that touches all of us, sometimes more than we realize: the impact of endless scrolling and digital overload on our spiritual formation and community. My guests are Brett McCracken and Ivan Mesa, the editors of Scrolling Ourselves to Death, Reclaiming Life in a Digital Age. Inspired by Neil Postman's ideas and centered on Christian hope, this collection brings together leading thinkers to explore how technology shapes our souls and what we can do to reclaim deeper living. Before we dive in, here's a quick note. We'd love to hear from you, our listeners. Please take a minute after the episode to fill out our short listener survey. It helps us shape future episodes and serve you better. You'll find the link in our show notes. Well, today I have two special guests who happen to be wearing matching shirts, which is always special. Brett McCracken and Ivan Mesa are editors of a book called Scrolling Ourselves to Death. And if that title doesn't capture your attention, I don't know what will. Brett, Ivan, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on Candid Conversations.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, you guys are both associated with Gospel Coalition. Tell us a little bit about your roles with TGC, and then we'll come back to the book.
Sure. So I serve as editorial director for TGC. So basically, you can hold me responsible for anything and everything we publish at TGC. So I have the delight of overseeing that part of TGC, whether through the website or in books. And one of the books is the one that you hold in your hands.
Great. And Brett?
And I am on the editorial team that Ivan oversees. So I'm a senior editor. I've been at TGC for about 8 years, and each of the editors oversees a certain area or topic, and I oversee arts and culture. So anything related to movies, music, pop culture, technology, social media, things like that. So that's what I do.
I've been going through this book, and it's hard to put down at times. I love the premise. I love what seems like the impetus for writing this. I love the content. I mentioned to you earlier that Colin Hansen's a friend, and he was describing this book before it had been finished, and I just thought we've got to talk about this. And so sort of set the stage for us. It's a 40th anniversary of Neil Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death. For those who don't know, maybe we can fill in some of the gaps. So tell us a little bit what kicked off the writing of this book.
Yeah, one of our colleagues, Spence Spencer, his first name is Andrew, but he goes by Spence. And he noted that the anniversary of Postman's book was coming up in 2025. And of course, I had read that book over a decade ago. Brett, even before that, a very formative book for both of us in different ways. Brett even did a master's degree in media-related field there, and he went to Wheaton. And studied with a professor who studied under Postman. So there's a personal connection. The book has been very formative for the two of us, but also for a lot of evangelicals over the last few decades. And that's striking for many reasons. One of them is Postman was not a Christian.
Right.
And yet the things that he was writing about kind of struck a chord back when he first wrote that book. But it's also been a very big conversation partner for pastors, church leaders, as they think about what was true back in the 80s, let alone 2000s, 2010s, and now 2025, how much the media landscape has changed. And so we wanted to be able to engage with Postman 4 decades later, building off what he did, but then kind of adding our voice to the conversation, because there's things that Postman never quite did that I think we as believers, with God's word as a foundation, I think we could speak a bit more pointedly and perceptively to this cultural moment right now.
Tell us a little bit about Amusing Ourselves to Death. What was Postman addressing for our audience, and then we can help navigate that to how you guys came to Scrolling Ourselves to Death.
Yeah, he wrote that book in the 80s, the mid 80s, and at the time television was becoming the mass media of the day, and he was noticing how it was changing the way people were talking, the way political discourse was happening. It happened to be the time when a well-known actor, Ronald Reagan, was president. And so there was just this merging of kind of entertainment culture and important kind of civic discourse. And that was, I think, the big idea that he was addressing. But really, he was modeling careful analysis of how the medium changes the message, to draw from Marshall McLuhan, who came before him. And that's what we're trying to do for a new generation. We're not just paying homage to Neil Postman's book,
Right.
as great as it was. We're just trying to take his method of careful, critical thinking about technology and the forms of technology and how they change us, how they change how we think, how we talk, how we worship, how we think about God. There's power in technology to change all of that. And Postman showed that in his book, and we're trying to show that with the technologies of our day, scrolling, swiping, social media, and so forth.
Yeah. I mean, it is funny. I just think if I'm in anything, ordering food, sitting at an airport, it doesn't matter. If you take a moment and look up and look around the room, it's almost every single person from old to child is head down. I mean, there's a posture. I mean, you almost think it's going to start to affect people's the way they stand and the way they hold their neck. I mean, and they call it death scrolling, right? And it is this idea that we're always on our devices. I have time to kind of look around and make notice of that, but the thing is, like, I find myself being guilty of this at the same time. Let's kind of bridge the gap from Postman's view and seeing that with television to what we're seeing today with social media, digital technology, and just how that trajectory has continued even over 40 plus years.
You want to take a crack at that?
Oh yeah, it's in these interviews. It's always hard to know who goes first in answering these questions.
Yes, right.
So feel free to call on one of us if you want.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of continuity with the kind of entertainment culture that Postman was engaging. TV was, one thing, and now we all have TVs in our pocket, and that's a big change. It's like TV has gone from being this thing you sit down in one room in your house and engage to now being something that you take with you everywhere you go. And to your point, you look around at waiting rooms at airports or in line at coffee shop, everyone is just head down, eyes glazed, scrolling. And so there's this kind of new next level of addiction that is new with today's technologies because everything is so personalized and the algorithm kind of figures you out and feeds you exactly the sort of content that you are prone to, gravitate towards or want to click on. And that's new. And so if it was hard in the 80s to resist the addiction of watching television and all that that did to us, it's that much harder now in the scrolling age when the deck is stacked against us because everything on our feeds is like perfectly tailored to me.
Right. Yeah.
And we all know that kind of challenge when you open your phone and you're like, oh wow, they know exactly the sort of thing
Yeah.
I tend to click on, and you
Right.
find yourself 20 minutes later, you're still clicking on things, and you just get in this kind of loop cycle of pulling out your phone, meandering, getting lost in the rabbit trail of algorithms, and
You lose sense of
then
time, and you look and think, "How long
yeah,
have I been doing this?" You've got a chart in the book. I love it. There's the entertainment media, which is probably more what Postman was writing about, but then you have what you call dopamine media, which, Brett, you're really hitting on there, and the differences between physical access. Your access to entertainment media was if you could get in front of a television, which is plugged into a wall, it has electricity. All of a sudden, it's unlimited. It's wherever your mobile device can go. Something that might be of interest to you, you got to find on entertainment media, right? You got to channel surf. Everything's tailored to you and built to you in this sort of new era of things, and it's a little bit scary, right? And the funny thing is, like, often what we find people writing about is the effect it's having on children, and that I'm absolutely convinced is, of course, the situation. But the reality is sometimes we're not aware of how much it's even influenced us.
yeah,
You see yeah, again, like we said, it's from the senior citizen all the way down. The consumption it's more than I think we're even aware of. Um, what would Neil Postman, who I know passed away 20 some years ago, what would he say about just the shift that's taken, the dopamine shift and the sort of saturation of media that's now around us?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, you read Amusing Ourselves to Death now, and it almost feels a little quaint.
Right.
Like, oh, bless your heart. Like, you're really criticizing, cable news and the little advertisement in the middle.
Right.
And you fast forward 40 years, and it feels like a whole different world,
It's
a
on
brave new world,
steroids. Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think in some ways, Postman was that lonely voice in the wilderness calling out of the dangers he saw in his time and a little bit prescient about the future. But I don't think he could have seen what was coming. And in some ways, even this book, in some ways, will feel quaint and dated when you fast forward another 40 years. What is the media landscape going to look like? And there's a version of that you become a little bit jaded and curmudgeonly about these things. But I think in our day, one of the burdens for us in doing this book was to take stock not just of the problem today of what's fast forwarded from when Postman was doing, but also really speak a pastoral word to the church. Because I think, as you noted, this, as you look at the airport, all the people that are on their phones, this is our evangelistic mission field. People that are scrolling themselves to death in more ways than one. But it's also an inward issue. It's a discipleship problem within the church as we think about not just people out there, but myself and Brett and you. Like these are the realities that we have to navigate with our own hearts as we seek to follow Christ. And that's, I think, where Postman just really did a fantastic job of diagnosing the problem, but not really offering constructive solutions. He did offer a few things in other books, but even those, I just don't think were enough to really help people along the way.
And so, what were some of his solutions? Was it sort of, hey, turn off the TV, go outside, love your family, those kind of the things we would assume?
Yeah, he actually wrote a whole different book. I'm not sure where I have it in my library, but it's a bridge to the 18th century. So he's writing at the end of the 90s, looking at a new century ahead of him. And I think this comes up often as well in Amusing Ourselves to Death, this kind of romanticizing of the 18th century, the typographic mind. And I think there's some truth to that in terms of when you had a book, you had to sit down with an author and think through that for hours and days. Whereas in our day and age, we have, 20 seconds and that forms opinions and thoughts. But I think he um, overdid his view of what the 18th century could do, as if that's the silver bullet
Right.
For the 21st century.
Right.
Brett, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a critique of Postman that we mention in the book is it's almost too simple of his solution is like, let's just turn back the clock to, the Enlightenment age and the age of kind of the Lincoln Douglas debates. Like, let's just go back to that.
Right.
The reality is, I don't think we can go back, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle with the internet and social media and these technologies.
Yeah.
So I think what we're trying to do in scrolling ourselves to death is not to be Luddites and to suggest that really the only solution is just throw away your phone and become the Amish. Although we do kind of give props to the Amish in a few chapters for modeling
Sure.
the possibility. It is possible to live without these technologies. But for most people, it's not realistic to just get rid of your smartphone and to live completely analog lives. So as the church, as church leaders, we need to give people a vision, give people practical ideas for how to live wisely with these technologies, put them in their proper place. Don't let them become idols that have a hold on you and become the centerpiece of your every waking moment, which I think is arguably happening for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're somewhere between Postman's kind of curmudgeonly Jeremiad posture against technology, which there's a lot of merit to that, but also kind of a more positive view of living wisely as Christians with these technologies.
Before we get to the church answer, which I know is sort of the third section of the book, let's talk a little bit about how digital media, social media, how these things are beginning to become disciplers of us. How are they forming us as people? I think probably everyone listening to this is paying close attention because they're saying, yes, I understand. I'm part of this. In reading the book, I realized I don't even realize how I'm being formed. You know, it takes somebody like you guys editing and in your authors contributing to say, here's what's happening to the individual, and then you say, oh, now the mirror's been placed in front of me. So let's talk a little bit about where the formations are coming in before we kind of get to how's the church sort of respond to this.
Oh, I mean, we can spend the entire time talking about this.
Right.
I
We'll
lot
take
think,
a few because I
yeah.
want everyone to buy the
Mhm.
book. So we'll just take a few so that we'll whet the appetite a little bit.
Yeah, I think one thing that I just see in my own life is, and in different seasons, the temptation to value digital connections over embodied relationship. And there have been certain seasons where that's been more heightened than other seasons. But I think, especially for Christians, we were made to not just be in community, but to be with one another in the church. And I think there have been different moments where I see in myself, I see outside in the culture, where there's a transactional element, there's a over prioritization of digital connections, friends, quote unquote. But then a dismal reality when it comes to people knowing you, knowing not just what you like to project out there for the algorithm, for the likes,
Yeah.
but you at your worst, you when you snap at a friend or envy comes in your heart and you have to wrestle with those emotions with another church member. And we can just go on and on in terms of just both the positive and the negative realities that we were made to be in these sort of communities. And I think that there's a common grace element there for Christian, non-Christian alike, that we were made for much more than that. And we can just keep going on. I mean, one other thought that comes to mind, and Brett's written so much about this, but the generation of the iPhone, everything becoming self-oriented, and it's all about me rather than out there. And I think there's a certain narcissism that just kind of breeds in our hearts where we become the center of the universe. So those are just two ideas that come to mind in terms of what's changed.
Yeah, I was going to mention the last one. Sometimes it's called main character syndrome, where the generation that has been kind of raised in the smartphone era, where they really are the center of the universe.
Right.
Everything revolves around their preferences. The algorithm serves them things for them. They have the ease of being able to follow, unfollow at their discretion, one click purchases on Amazon. It's like the pinnacle of consumerism, really. The smartphone is like the pinnacle of consumerism. And that conditions us to go through life thinking we are the main character of every story and the world needs to revolve itself around us. We don't need to subject ourselves to accountability of a community. They need to affirm us, like they need to serve us. And I think in local churches, this is presenting real practical challenges because you have people raised in this main character smartphone age coming into church
Yeah.
where you are kind of expected to kind of not just be the star, right? Like God is the star of church. You are to serve others, like be mindful of others. It's not just you and your preferences that matter most, but everything else in digital life tells that story that it's you and your preferences that matter most. So that's a big one that I think is different than in Postman's day. One area of kind of continuity with Postman is kind of the way digital technology is rotting our brains. Like we literally call it brain rot. That's like a slang term that Gen Z likes to use to describe, like they know that it's happening. Like, oh,
Interesting.
I'm just going to sit down and watch Netflix or go through TikTok. It's brain rot. I know.
Wow.
But there's science that's showing that it actually is doing that. Like our
Yeah.
cognitive functioning is on the decline, where we have less ability to retain things in reading. There was a new study that came out just a few weeks ago about like conscientiousness and the ability to like be responsible and follow through on things is like plummeting over the last 10 years. And it's because of, this brain rot, this cognitive atrophy
Yeah.
that is a real result of the way that we go through life, just kind of swiping and scrolling, clicking from one thing to the next without ever going deeper than kind of the surface level.
And with that mentality, is it from that cognitive function? Is it the expectation if I'm the main character, somebody else is going to do that for me? Amazon's going to deliver the package. Somebody's going to walk my dog. Some robot's going to be able to do all those things, and I don't therefore need to do it? Or is it just some sort of dissociative connection there?
I mean, I think it's increasingly it's both like I can let AI do that for me, and
Right.
AI is going to make this problem a
Worse.
whole lot worse
Sure.
because now you can outsource your thinking in almost every respect to
Stay tuned for our
robots.
sequel,
I know we
AI
we
and
didn't
ourselves to
mention
death.
AI all that much in this
No,
book,
yeah.
which just shows you how much technology changes fast.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's outsourcing your thinking, but it's also just the way our brains are being changed by the interface of digital life, where like Nicholas Carr in his book The Shallows, he was kind of like an early leading thinker about how the internet was rewiring our brains. He has this image of like instead of like excavating for information, which is the way we used to think, now we just strip mine. We Google what we need to find, we take it and we leave. Like,
Yeah.
and we do that with all sorts of things. Like you scan an article for like the bits and pieces that you need to know, but you
Right.
don't
You
like
consume the whole
you
thing.
don't fully digest it and kind of synthesize it. And that changes our brains. Our brains over time kind of lose the ability to do that synthesis, deeper thinking.
As we've uncovered, digital technology isn't just reshaping how we interact, it's fundamentally changing how we see ourselves, one another, and even God. But recognizing the challenges is only the first step. In our next episode, we'll dive even deeper into how Christian communities can respond, moving from digital overwhelm and disconnection to embodied resilience and meaningful relationships. Be sure to join us as we explore practical hope and real solutions for reclaiming life in a digital world.